Once upon a time, there were 0 Muslim nations, and now there's 50. New mosques in the last 3 years just in the Dallas Metroplex.
That is the game plan, all right? We will outreach you. By numbers, we will take over.
So this went like viral a few years ago. I want to know, this is why I like doing stuff like this, because I can ask you if this is true or not. So like, this went crazy viral like a year ago, and I grabbed it. It's 3 phases of Muslim immigration. Phase 1, few in number, oppressed Islam, play the victim, claim Islamophobia, more tolerant of others. Phase 2, large minority, indignant Islam, threatening, demand Sharia law, intolerant infidels. Phase 3, clear majority, dominant Islam, militant, strict Sharia law, kill, subdue all infidels. And then it says for 1,400 years, this pattern hasn't changed, et cetera. Moderates are irrelevant. Historically, is that true?
Logically, it's true. Historically, I'll say it's not true for one reason. Because you can only get away with this amongst stupid Westerners. Okay? And historically, Westerners weren't stupid. Okay, so the phase 1, play the victim, claim Islamophobia, wouldn't have worked a few centuries ago. You can't go to a European country in the medieval era and be, oh, I'm an oppressed Muslim. They'd kick you out.
That doesn't work in like Anglo-Saxon Britain, probably.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, it works now, but historically, to their credit, Europeans would not have fallen because it requires naivety. You have to, for phase 1, you have to be naive and go, oh, they're poor victims, oh, Islamophobia, oh, I got to give you tolerance.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have happened, okay? But now, yes, this is absolutely correct amongst the naive West.
So like for listeners, because like if you're like me and you're trying to get your head around historically, how does this work in civilizations? You know, it's like, honestly, if you just zoom out, like as I'm reading your stuff, I'm like, if I just zoom out, once upon a time, there were 0 Muslim nations, and now there's 50. Well, that happened somehow.
Yeah.
No, but what do you do with like nations like, I think it's like Albania. There's like a few nations where it's like people go, hey man, see, that's a Muslim nation where it's very tolerant and pluralistic. And how do you think about that?
Okay, the truth is Albania, for Albania is really like schizophrenic because what's funny about it is it became Muslim through coercion. One of the guys,
I don't know what that is.
Do you remember Skanderbeg?
I don't.
Okay, one of the characters in Defenders of the West, chapter 7, I think, is this Albanian hero. He's probably one of the greatest warriors of Christendom who fought the Ottomans, kept them out of Albania for a quarter of a century.
Oh, I do remember this guy, yep.
Yeah. Anyway, after him, the Muslims were so indignant that once they did conquer Albania, Albania is basically there was no you pay tribute. You become Muslim or not. Yeah. So that's why it entered into Albania. But what's funny about it is that it's just a nominal thing. It's just a superficial thing because their hero and their flag is still Skanderbeg, who fought Islam. The Muslims. Wow. The Muslims of Albania still venerate the Christian guy who fought Islam. Okay?
Why?
Because he's their hero. But at the same time, they're all very secular and atheistic. If you go to Albania, it's like nobody there is... It's just a nominal thing. It's like we're called Muslims, but there's literally almost nobody there who's a true Muslim. I'm sure there are some.
It's almost like, so like an example, I grew up in the Bible Belt South. Yeah. And a lot of times you would see people like, yeah, dude, they're taking a census. And like, well, I'm not a Muslim and I'm not an atheist, so yeah, I guess I'm a Christian.
Yeah,
Is it kind of that kind of vibe?
Yeah.
Cultural.
Yeah.
We would call it cultural Christian.
Yes.
And they go, I'm culturally Muslim.
Yeah,
that's
it's my cultural thing. Yeah, oh, there's this thing, Ramadan, we hang out at night, eat, we feast. And, for that particular, that's what I mean by Albania. It's such an aberration. It has a weird history. It's still very European in a way. Its flag is the guy who fought Islam, even though they're Muslims.
Okay,
it's like really a weird kind of dynamic, which I would say is very aberrant and doesn't really reflect on our topic because we have multiple examples that validate what we're talking about, And so you'll always find an aberration. And even in Albania, I don't want to make it sound like I'm sure there's a radical Muslim there here or two, I'm sure. But I say by and large, they're very kind of like a secular, atheistic. It's the same thing with the Stan countries, Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. They are Islamic, but because of under Soviet rule, they're literally atheistic. So they're not. You know what I mean? So, So it's just it's like a nominal name cultural thing.
But you're saying like when you're saying in general, historically and geopolitically, when actual practicing Muslims gain power, that graphic tends to happen.
Yeah. Okay, so that's what we're seeing in Europe right now. Okay,
I want to ask you about that.
And America too, which is when they're tiny minorities. Oh, I'm oppressed. I need special privileges because I'm being, oppressed. And then when they become, a stronger but still a minority, then they become more demanding and more assertive. Yeah, you're seeing that everywhere in Europe. And then, of course, I'll give you another perfect example of what happens. So in Nigeria, that's one of the rare countries where the Muslims and Christians are literally 50-50. Mm-hmm. It's a genocide of Muslims against Christians now because 50-50, well, the
Does
Muslims...
it ever, for devil's advocate, does it ever happen the other way where the Christians attack the Muslims unprovoked, that kind of thing?
No. You mean Nigeria or in general?
In Nigeria.
No, not at all.
I just didn't know. I wanted to ask.
No. It's a good question. No.
Yeah.
It is okay. And here's how the media plays it. The media will never tell you it's Muslims or Christians. It'll say it's.
Dude, I've noticed this.
Yeah.
Keep going. I've noticed.
They'll say, oh, these herdsmen, because they need grazing land, invaded and attacked and killed a sedentary village. Yeah. And that's it. It just
they tie it to climate change.
Yeah.
Have you noticed this?
Yeah. No, openly they tie it to climate change.
Yeah.
But then you find out, all the herdsmen are Muslim, and they were dressed in black, chanting Islamic slogans and saying Allahu Akbar, and all the sedentary villagers were Christians. Okay. So yeah, it's the same dynamic over and over, but the media dissembles as usual.
Now
Because remember, a Christian can never be the victim. Christians are the oppressors. We worked very hard to create a fake history to convince you Christians are bad. So we can't have you thinking Christians are being persecuted by Muslims. That's why that topic, as massive as it is, I mean, I told you every month I write a long report. I wish I didn't have to. Nobody knows about it. Nobody, including Christians in the West, because it's such an Achilles heel. You're not supposed to believe that Christians, who we told you are the bad guys, you got to be liberal. You can't be like any Christian. They're the ones who are being killed, and worse by Muslims, because we taught you're the bad guy. You need to accommodate the Muslims and so forth. So.
Okay, so you mentioned, I mean, you brought up, and honestly, this is one of the, you can have some of that if you want it. You brought this up, like, hey man, some of this is happening in Europe and America. So this is honestly one of the reasons I want to reach out to you, just to shoot you real straight. So like here in Dallas, like we've got a couple areas of Dallas that they're very, very heavy Muslim immigration, that kind of thing. So this is gonna take me a second. I'm gonna run through some things that are really not as much for you. They're for people who are listening.
I'm chewing.
Yeah, you're good. So that we can give you a chance to eat your cookie. So that people understand, like, why is Josh asking this question? Well, this is what I'm getting ready to do. This is why I'm asking this question. Now, for listeners, what I'm doing for Christians is I just want to remind you something, like biblically and theologically, what you got in the scriptures is that God establishes 3 institutions for the flourishing of humanity. He establishes the family, the church, and the state. And what Christians are not good at doing, and this is not going to be a surprise to Raymond, what Christians are not good at doing is thinking in categories. So what Christians have to learn to do is with any issue, honestly, especially things like Islam, Muslim immigration, that sort of thing, Christians have to learn how to put their theological thinking cap on, open their Bible, and then think in categories and ask 3 questions, not one. Instead of just asking, man, how should I think or feel about Muslims and Muslim immigration? We actually have to ask 3 questions. Again, family, church, state. So you need to ask the question, 1, for me as an individual Christian leading a Christian family, how am I supposed to relate to my Muslim neighbors? Dude, we got commands for that. I'm supposed to love my neighbor. I'm supposed to share the gospel with my neighbor. Question number 2. Then we need to ask the question, awesome, man, I'm a pastor of a church with a massive missions budget. This is just, you don't know anything about me, but that's what and like our goal is to fulfill the Great Commission, is to share Christ with all nations, teaching them to obey all the things, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Spirit. So then we ask the question, what should we do as churches? Well, we're supposed to fulfill the Great Commission. So I'm like, dude, I love Jesus loves everybody in the world. I love everybody in the world. We're going to try to share the gospel with everybody. But then what Christians historically are not good at doing, which you are good at helping people think about, is asking the 3rd question. What about the role of the state and thinking civilizationally? Christians, honestly, we haven't had to think like that for a couple 100 years. And what I'm trying to do here is, and this is leading into a long question here, is, man, when Christians put their theological thinking cap on and ask the 3rd question, how should Christians want the role of the state, the biblical role of the state, thinking civilizationally, to relate to things like Muslims and immigration? That's where Christians, I think, get a little naive, to put it mildly. Now, if you're listening, and all this is leading into a question I'm going to ask you. So for people who are watching and you're like, dude, why is he even talking about this? So there's obviously, this is a massive conversation in Europe, parts of America. If you're not a listener from Dallas, this is a pretty big conversation in parts of Dallas, parts of Michigan, New York City. So go ahead and toss that first thing up. Yeah, that's it. This is BBC. Muhammad overtakes Noah as the most popular boy's name in England and Wales. So for listeners, I just zoom out. In England and Wales, pause for dramatic effect.
It's not just there, by the way.
I'm going to keep going. Overtakes Noah as the... No, don't do that yet. So I've got some other things. 11%, you can take that down, Trini. 11% of England's mayors are now Muslim, 11%. In the following cities in Europe, this is the kind of thing that, like, if you're a Christian, you're like, what? Bro, what is going on? In the following cities in Europe, if you take, there's variants of how people spell Muhammad. I think there's 5 primary. If you take them all and combine them into one name, in the following cities in Europe, Muhammad is now the #1 male baby name. So you have the entire nations of England and Wales, London, England, Manchester, UK, Berlin, Germany, Oslo, Norway, Brussels, Belgium, Amsterdam, Netherlands, Edinburgh, Scotland, Glasgow, Scotland. Nationally, as of this year, for the first time in human history, nationally in Scotland, the variants of Muhammad combined are now nationally the #1 baby name in all of Scotland. Before I toss up this next graphic, for people who don't know this, like, I'm not as much of a history nerd as Raymond, but I'm a little bit of a history nerd. Since 1521, the King of England has been referred to, the Pope originally titled the King of England starting in 1521, the protector of the faith, or the defender of the faith, talking about the Christian faith. Who did that? Do you know who did that?
Which Pope?
Yeah. Or what king? Do you know what king was originally called that?
Actually, I believe it was Henry VIII.
That's right.
When he was still Catholic.
Okay, there you go. That's awesome. That's hilarious. Okay.
But then he kept it when he became Protestant.
All right. Yeah. Ever since, good job.
Yeah.
The king. So ever since 1521. So for 500 years, the King of England. Oh, by the way, until this month, has been referred to as the defender of the faith. Go ahead and toss that up. As of this month, for the first time in English history in 500 years, they switched it from defender of the faith, because it was Christianity, to defender of the faiths. And now it's like, now we're protecting all faiths. Go ahead and toss that, the video of the march. So this, just for people who don't know what's going on, that's a march. And you may look at that and you may be going, this is last month, by the way. You may look at that and you may be going, oh man, I wonder what's going on over there in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's Michigan. That's Michigan. By the way, I don't know, what are those flags? Do you know what those flags are?
I'm trying to see what's written on them.
Yeah.
It's, it's all, based on the context, it's all supremacist, Islamic, Arabic jargon.
Okay, I don't know. I hate to put you on the spot there.
And a lot of them is the Shahada. There's no God but Allah. Muhammad is his messenger.
Okay, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
All right, you can take that down. So that, again, that's not like Iran. That's not Saudi Arabia. That's Michigan. Go ahead and toss that Apple Maps thing up, Trinity. So here's what this is, Raymond. This is, because of the immigration thing, this is mosques, new mosques in the last 3 years just in the Dallas Metroplex. So I'm going to let that just sink in for people.
These are new ones.
Those are new ones, from what I understand, new ones just in the last 3 years in the Dallas Metroplex. And then I'm going to play, and I know it may be a little incendiary, but like, I just want you to comment all this stuff. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to ask you. Yeah. And then I'm going to tell you what I'm going to ask you, then I'm going to show this, and then I want you to answer the question. Like, when people zoom out historically and watch this trend, if the trend continues, my question to you is, like, based on history, what's next? So before you answer that question, this next thing you're getting ready to see is, this is an imam in, if I remember right, I think it's in New York. This is an imam in New York, and he's explaining to people the strategy. Go ahead and play this real quick, Trinity.
One day you're going to be the president of the United States of America. No one, going Michael Ali, who can stop you from becoming a president. Dream big. Have a vision. Because if Barack Hussein Obama can be a president, Sohaib Jawad cannot be a president.
Do Muslims think of him as a Muslim
He's going to be a
president?
president.
His father
He's
was
talking
Muslim,
about
right?
the
That makes him
Muslims who take
Muslim.
over Mecca. They used to laugh at him.
Now listen real close.
What happened? What is Mecca now? Where's Mecca? It's coming. Change is coming to America. And what is Allah telling us? Kuntum khayra ummatin. You are the best of nations. You're better than everybody else. That's what Allah is saying. Let's work towards that. Let's work towards a Muslim mayor. Next election that comes in, nominate people for the school board of education. Next election that comes here, nominate people for the local township. Begin the demographics change. People converted. There's a big, huge conversion going on in this country. But where are the converts? They just convert and they're gone in the wilderness. The other thing, children. Muslims have the highest population.
This is a big deal right here.
They did Pew Foundation did a research study, Pew Foundation, and they said that Muslim household average is 3.4 child per family. The white American has 1 child per family. We're already beating the march because these are voters. These are not just babies being born in hospitals. These are voters. That's the way a politician looks at it. We have to change the framework and start looking at things from a different lens, different angle. For future, you're not going to change society today in your lifetime, but you think about your grandchildren.
There you go. So, all right, when you see that, first of all, is that fringe rhetoric or is that historically centered? What do you, when you see all that, like, as you're watching what's happening in the world, Europe, parts of America, what do you think about it? And then, like, historically, like, if the trend continues, you know, what happens?
So first of all, what you just played, I've seen countless of that throughout the years because I know Arabic and I just watch them. I mean, you're lucky when you get a translation or if he speaks in English, but they are constant. They feel especially relaxed speaking Arabic because most people don't know what they're saying. So that sort of message is like I can anytime go on the satellite and hear some guy saying something like that. First of all, so that's very common, very mainstream. And second, you have to understand. Let's go back to the concept of jihad, right? And I find it very interesting. Here's one of those ironies. Maybe you're acquainted with what I'm going to say, but one of the apologias about the word jihad is historically it was translated as holy war, right? Because that's what it was. It manifested itself the way I described it in holy war, war on behalf of empowering Islam. And Muslims and scholars will tell you, no, that's not what the word means. It actually means to strive, to struggle, okay? And guess what? Yes, that is literally the word, what it means. The connotation, of course, is holy war, because that's how historically, if you were going to empower Islam vis-a-vis the infidel, if you were going to beat the infidel, you had to do it through war, because they're not going to let you walk in and take over them. This is why when you ask me to explain it historically, it's not that easy, because what we're seeing today doesn't have a historical precedent.
Oh, really?
No. The historical precedent is Islam was aggressive and it tried to conquer. What we have today is Western countries empowering and taking in Muslims and allowing them to come in and being outbred by them and appeasing them. Europeans never did that before.
That's never happened before.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Because they actually had a civilization they wanted to defend and a faith and a religion. Today's Western person, he's just, I don't know, hedonist, a nihilist, a relativist. Anything's fine, right? Yeah, why not? So that's one of the issues, which we'll get to. But the word jihad, so it's interesting because when they tell you, oh, it just means to struggle and strive, that really explains what you just saw. It does mean that, but again, what are you struggling and what are you striving to do? To empower Islam, okay? And guess what? So amongst these types and amongst the scholars and the Muslims, there's different forms of jihad. There's a physical one we know, holy war, but there's things that they call jihad of, I'll give you the English translation, the jihad of the tongue. Jihad of the pen.
Can you do the Arabic?
Yeah, jihad al-lisan, jihad al-qalam. Okay, these are the jihad of the tongue, jihad of the pen, and these basically are like propaganda and disseminating lies to help Islam, to empower Islam, to cry Islamophobia, for example, to say you are oppressing me. That's a jihad. Now, what you're seeing is there's also what's known as, it has different names, but jihad of the womb, which is basically breeding them, outbreeding them.
Yeah.
So what he said, I've heard countless Muslims say this, That is the game plan. All right, we will outbreed you. We by numbers we will take over, and this is why some of these European countries like England and France, they talk about we're gonna stop migration. Well, it's too little, too late because
Do you think so? For real?
it's too little, too late because what are you gonna do with the 10% Muslim population there that's constantly outbreeding you, right? And by the way, there's a reason that Muhammad is the number one name, not Ahmed or Mustafa. Muhammad's a popular name amongst Muslims, but in the Islamic world, if you go to a Muslim country, it's going to be in the top, but it's not necessarily going to be the number one. The reason it's the number one name is they're letting you know what this is about because that's the name of their prophet. It's a religious thing, okay? So it's it's like in your face.
Okay.
We are here to outbreed you with our prophet, our master Muhammad. So this is definitely it. Now, when I try to tell you that there's no historical precedent, what I mean by that is historically the only jihad that would work against non-Muslims, including Christians and Europeans, was the physical kind. You couldn't dupe them by saying, hey, we're going to go live in your country and we're going to start outbreeding you and you're going to give us free money and you're going to let us build mosques and you're going to suppress your faith because it's offensive to us. That would have never happened. That's a modern day phenomenon. Okay, and that's completely a byproduct of the West's spiritual sabotage. It has nothing left. It's a vacuous civilization, unfortunately. And that's why those guys and the defenders of the West were actually, during these times that we're talking about the Crusades and around that time, Europe was the weak one. That was the weak side. The strong side was the mammoth, behemoth Ottoman sultanates and the caliphates. But they still fought tooth and nail to the death. They had something to defend. They had the faith, they had their culture, they had their families. Today, because a lot of Western people don't have any of those, they're capitulating and they go by feel-good mantras and, oh yes, tolerance and this and that. And one last thing is the king, and we're talking about he's defender of the faith, defender of the faiths. Just to show you how ludicrous it's reached. On the surface, this doesn't look bad. Okay, so, of course, England is a multi-faith country, so he has to represent them all or something like that. But for starters, England or Britain has religious freedom. So you can be a Muslim, you can be a Sikh, whatever. Okay, so it doesn't need that. Defender of the faith historically meant that there's a faith that we believe collectively, us Brits, us English, is true, which was Christianity. And we will defend this, okay? When you turn that singular faith into faiths, okay, what you've just done is said that your faith is not real. Because there can only be one real faith. Okay,
that's right. Yeah.
So if faiths means none of them are real. Okay, it's just an opinion that he has that opinion, you have that opinion. Yeah,
that's a fact right there.
Yeah, but you've just putting that little s has just turned the King of England, and here the ironies just never end. His entire monarchy is validated and justified by Christianity. He is the Christian king, and he is now going to defend a religion that in its core doctrines attack Christianity by saying things like, there is no such thing as a Trinity. Christ is not the Son of God. Only filthy infidels will say that. We have to fight and kill them. So he's not going to protect that mentality, and yet he's the defender of the faith. So
like, I read this quote years ago, and I made sure it was legit. So Erdogan, the guy, the president of Turkey. President? Is that what he's called? Yeah. President? Okay. He said this. He said, because he was originally democratically elected, and now that's not how it rolls over there. So his quote was, democracy is like a streetcar. You ride it until you get where you want to go, and then you get off. Yeah?
That's absolutely the Islamic game plan. You just saw him. They constantly come and the Muslims will tell you, oh, we're going to vote for the Muslim candidate, right? Yeah. Okay, well, that's not democracy. That's tribalism. Yeah. That's like a white guy saying, we're voting for the white guy. Yeah. How does that look, right? You're supposed to vote for the guy that represents what's best for the society, right? That sort of thing. But they come collectively. They don't even know who it is. It's just the Muslims, because that's all we care about. We are a tribe. We're not here to assimilate. We're not here to have a civic society with you that's beneficial to you and me. It's just Islam 101. But it's found a little groove, and it's exploiting it due to the naivety that's embedded. And the problem with Western civilization and society as it is today is it takes it for granted. It's very high trust society. Yeah. And then you bring a sort of parasitic element that is not like that at all, that sees you as the enemy and just sees you as a freebie. What can I exploit this person out of? I'm not here to, get along with, or like, we saw all these, financial scams, the Somalis, so what was it?
Minnesota.
350 million or something like
it's
that.
insane.
Yeah. Because, and even in England, I remember watching Muslim clerics. I told you about the jizya, is, what Christians would pay in tribute to their overlord, Muslim overlords. And you watch Muslims saying, yeah, we take welfare from you guys because it's jizya. It's our rightfully earned money.
They just say that
They
publicly?
say that, yeah.
So that's the mentality?
That's the mentality.
It's justified by that doctrine?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. There's one, I saw a Pakistani cleric, Sheikh Anjum Chowdhury, Pakistani in Britain. And there was a video of him. I don't know if it's gone now, but there was a video of him where he says that jokingly. He's like, of course we get our welfare, but it's jizya. They owe it to us.
That's the doctrine they use to justify. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's the mentality. Okay. Let me gear shift a little bit. So let me ask you this. So this is something I think a lot of people are confused by. So like in the United States, in general, you have a lot of elections happening right now. This is kind of why I first reached out to you. You got Mamdani up there in New York City, Rashida Tlaib. You've got a lot of the DSA candidates that are Democratic Socialists of America. You have this Chevalier girl that was just elected up there in New York City. This Muslim girl attended a rally after October 7th celebrating the slaughter of the Jews. That literally has public quotes. Actually, will you just do you have those from the Chevalier? Those Chevalier, like this is a girl that just won an election up there. Do the blue one first, Trinity. No, the blue one first, right there. So she's the one, that was elected Democratic rep, loses primary to Mamdani-backed Daria Avila Chevalier. This you got. Go to that next one that you got right there. Nope, the other one. The you've got it already pulled up. Yeah, that one right there. She's like on record, like we are fighting for the total eradication of Western civilization. And then you go to the next one that you have underneath that. Yep. And then, she like just openly hates the United States. I forgot to get napkins, so I wiped my hand on the American flag behind me. She calls white women ugly colonizers. She, like I said, attended the rally after October 7th, celebrating the slaughter of the Jews. She's for, abolition of all borders and prisons. Calls the United States a disgrace of a country. U.S. service members are war criminals. Is kind of, and you have more and more elections that are kind of moving that way. Now, what I think is confusing to a lot of people, especially Christians in America, is they're always progressive. So like we got this little clip of Mamdani right here. You got that, Trinity? This little clip of Mamdani, and this is very normal. He's at a pride parade. So this is like this him up there. It's a pride parade, and that's pretty normal for like some of the Muslims that are getting elected. And I don't know anything about them. Like maybe that's how they feel, but I think people look at that this alliance of like the progressive left and Muslims, and they're like, wait, you guys are supposed to be for women's rights, but it's like. That's not the vibe of, Islam, and you guys are for LGBT quote unquote rights, and that's not. So like, let me just ask, like, what is going on in your mind?
It makes perfect sense to me. What's going on is you have to see beyond it all, and this is now we have to get spiritual and talk about religion. And it's what's going on is, you're absolutely right. These are two antithetical mentalities. I mean, Muslims are draconian, patriarchal, not homosexual friendly, and then you have the left, which is the exact opposite. So how does that work? That's what you're asking. How do they comport? And I think it comes down to the idea of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Yeah. And both of them have the same enemy, which is basically Christian civilization. Yeah. That's the way I see it. And they're coming from different angles. And this does have precedence, again, but most people don't know it. If you go back in time and you had the medieval Christian world, we know the Muslims were attacking it, right? But also the pagans. And guess what? They were often allied with each other.
Fascinating.
And they both hated it for the same reason. Vikings destroying crosses, Muslims destroying crosses, okay? So in many ways, I see the left as the descendants of the pagans, and the Muslims are the descendants of the Muslims, and they still have the same enemy. But unfortunately, for most Westerners and most Christians, they don't get that, and it's an alliance of convenience. So, for example, We just saw Mamdani with the gay flag and all that sort of thing. And maybe you're familiar with this story. I think it's in Hamtramck,
I've heard of it.
Michigan.
The guy that got elected. Yep.
Yeah, where basically last I heard, the city council is Muslim majority.
Yeah.
And it was the left that went out of their way to bring them in and empower them and represent them. And once they became the majority of the city council, they canceled gay pride.
Yeah. First thing,
right? So again,
then all the progressives felt betrayed.
Yes. Well, but they're idiots because, of course, I mean, that is Islam. Islam's not on your side, but they're both helping each other because their true enemy is the Christian body, is really Christianity. And but it's not. The media doesn't show it that way. Nobody's going to discuss it that way. But that's why you can get two diametrically opposed forces who are working in cahoots, because what they really hate is us.